as the mother of a now 16-year-old.
Mm-hmm. Who I met backstage.
He did?
He's a great young man.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
But y'all had bad blood for a while.
Real bad.
Real bad blood.
The worst blood.
There was a radio personality once upon a time. Her name was Wendy Williams. And she was practically burned at the stake for talking about such. And now it's all come full circle.
It appears like Wendy is finally getting out of her problematic guardianship after fresh test results showed that she was purposefully misdiagnosed with a lot of mental problems she doesn't have. What's worse is that the same team allocated to her by the court is the one supposedly behind this error. Wendy had been shouting at us for months, assuring everyone that she isn't insane, but no one was listening to her. Nicki Minaj even stepped in to spill the beans on what they were doing to Wendy, but no one took her seriously. Apparently, Nicki did this because she is next in line to be misdiagnosed and forced into a conservatorship. But as usual, everyone are going to overlook her, just as they did Wendy, until it's too late. This whole nightmare went down a few days ago when TMZ claimed that Wendy had a battery of neurological tests by an unidentified renowned neurologist in New York, and he decided that Wendy didn't have the disease that held her under a guardianship for years. Mind you, they forced this lady into various mental health institutions, canceled her TV program, separated her from her family, and rammed medicines down her throat over this disease, only for it to come out she didn't even have the condition to begin with. This is pretty terrible stuff, and given what Wendy is saying, it wasn't a mistake. It was a purposeful effort by Wells Fargo to keep her money and do what they liked with it.
Got one of the hottest DJs off of Hot 97 because she wanted to put up a picture of him getting his pants pulled down.
There was a radio personality once upon a time. Her name was Wendy Williams. And she was practically burned at the stake for talking about such. And she allegedly has been avoiding Puffy. You know, my thing about when you date a mogul, like he can hire a plane right now, land on the roof of the hotel where she's staying, pay people off at the front desk. I'm already paranoid.
But y'all had bad blood for a while.
Real bad.
Real bad blood.
The worst.
The worst.
But the difficulty is getting people to believe something that they don't want to believe. And in each of these cases, this is where the money is.
Wells Fargo was the one that began this problem when they pushed for her to have a court-appointed guardian because she was purportedly unable of handling her own financial affairs and at danger of exploitation. She was diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia and aphasia, and from this point on, it was up. What's even more suspicious about the entire process is that immediately after Wendy's legal guardian, Sabrina Marisi, took over, there were rumors that Wendy was getting better. So how did she go from that to suddenly having all these ailments just when Sabrina walked in? Even Wendy's son, Kevin Jr., called out the BS when he commented beneath a post the Shade Room posted on Wendy's diagnosis. He also stated Wendy's doctor informed them that Wendy's dementia was alcohol-induced, but for some reason, her team was still allowing her to consume a lot of alcohol. They also broke all contact with her family, meaning her family didn't know where she was or what was being done to her.
I feel like the Guardian has not done a good job of protecting my mom.
Wendy has subsequently attempted numerous times to get out of the guardianship, but they are not letting up. She even had a couple of independent examinations done to verify that she didn't have the conditions she was being diagnosed with, but they still claimed that she had. Mind you, according to specialists, persons with frontotemporal dementia only grow worse after their diagnosis. But Wendy has demonstrated extraordinary neurological resiliency since she went clean and sober 3 years ago. TMZ alleges that Wendy's legal team will submit legal paperwork with the court in the next 2 weeks, opening the road for a hearing when they will urge the judge to revoke the guardianship. If the judge digs in and refuses to stop it, renowned lawyer Joe Tacopina will then seek a jury trial and urge jurors to liberate Wendy. When Wendy originally was caught into this situation, the #1 suspect on everyone's list was Diddy, since he and Wendy had a lengthy relationship. Anyone who has been keeping up with them knows that Diddy has been trying to ruin Wendy for the longest time.
She said, you didn't see this part, she said, no, you know, Ben, you know I love you, and Puffy, I love you too. I adore that we're the last 2 people on earth who refer to him as Puffy. Really? Remember, I am hip-hop.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny how when men get older in hip hop, they're still, well respected, well versed, Kool Herc, you know what I'm saying, and Red Alert, and the legends, KRS-One. You put me in there, and all of a sudden it's like, oh no, Wendy's a talk show lady. No. I listened to Big L on the way to work this morning.
When we were younger, you weren't hearing your left ear, and that was considered straight, and hearing your right ear, that would be gay. And then at one point, people started wearing both earrings, and and
then they started wearing girl pants, and then they're wearing jeggings, and then, yes, it's very effeminized, but be very clear, there were lots of homosexuals in hip hop back in the 80s too, that was. What's worse, hip hop wearing skirts, or hip hop being closeted and having a plethora of kids to prove manhood, that, and denial of something that you shouldn't have to deny, which is your sexuality. So I hear what Jamar is saying, but we come from a very homosexual era of hip hop as well. There was a radio personality once upon a time. Her name was Wendy Williams, and she was practically burned at the stake for talking about such. And now it's all come full circle. There were many situations, none of which to talk about, but there were many situations back in the day in my career, and it's all coming full circle now. So,
a time where it's cool to be a gay rapper?
I don't know, because I still see Frank Ocean as being one amongst many, but one, and that's good. But and then there was the notion of this radio DJ in New York who is in denial. So that just goes to show you how far the homosexual movement within hip-hop and sports still needs to go. It is politically correct to be accepting, but behind closed doors, people are still hating. And Jason, the basketball player, is one, but it will be a long time, I think, before another actively playing in the locker room ball player comes out.
Wendy once accused him of obtaining oral from a guy. She stated someone had texted her images of Diddy on his vacation in Mexico, and in those photos, another guy was performing the you-know-what to him.
Wendy Williams, she got fired from Hot 97 because she had a picture of Puffy. So if you don't mind, give me the story from your point of view, and what was in the picture?
We were in Cancun. For whatever reason, dude was playing with Puff. He went behind him and grabbed his trunks and pulled them down. Some girls that was taking pictures. They took that picture and emailed it back to Wendy Williams. Wendy Williams said she had him in a compromising position, and like it was gay, something like that. She was gonna put it out. Wendy had shown people that email. Puff told Hot 97 if they didn't get rid of her before he got back in New York, that they was not gonna get any music from any of his friends, any of the record labels executives that was cool with him. Everybody was gonna boycott their station. We was out in LA for about 3 days before we landed back in New York. Wendy Williams was in the radio station in Philly. He was fired.
And remember the time when then 19-year-old Shine took the blame for Diddy in that nightclub incident? Wendy was the one who found the circumstances dubious and requested for it to be fully examined. She even questioned the entire event, suggesting that Diddy and J-Lo were concealing something. She was also one of the few ones to call out Diddy and Cassie's relationship far before Cassie ever left him.
He ran out of the club so fast and got into the waiting SUV that it wasn't until he got into the truck that he realized that he left Jennifer behind, along with his bodyguard, Anthony Wolf. He just ran. Forget it. That's a true sign of an itch bag, by the way. Leaving his
I thought it was an unpay.
Well, eventually, Jennifer and Wolf made their way to the SUV without Puffy.
Right.
They ran 11 lights to elude the cops. Supposedly it was Puffy, although people are saying they saw a female hand tossing a the window. And then when the cops stopped them, they found a second gun, of course, in the car.
Right.
All four of the occupants, the driver, the bodyguard, Puffy and Jennifer, were handcuffed and taken down to the precinct. And eventually, Puffy and his bodyguard, Wolf, were overheard talking about their plot to bribe the driver to take the rap for the... And Puffy was overheard saying, and I quote, because the prosecutor said this, "I can't go to jail, I'm Puff Daddy."
He was arrested with a deadly weapon. And
Puffy wants Cassie back. Oh, it's been all over social media. Puffy posted a picture of Michael Jackson's song, Lady in My Life, and wrote, if anyone sees Cassie this weekend, please tell her to listen to this song 100 times. I suggest don't use social media, though, to reach out. I think this is a grand overture from Puffy. I don't believe he really wants her back. I believe he probably treated her at some particular point like a possession, like a possession. And if you really care, then you'd reach out privately, not publicly.
Y'all had bad blood for a while.
Real bad.
Real bad blood.
The worst blood.
The worst blood. You almost wanted to run you out of New York at one point, right? Well, not run, like push you out of New York at one point. He had you ran out. You give him full credit for that? Okay, cool. He had you ran out of New York.
Things got so nasty that Diddy even threatened her then 16-year-old son. What occurred was that Wendy invited Diddy for an interview. During the interview, he casually brought up her kid in their chat, which made Wendy noticeably uneasy since she suspected there was a reason he addressed her son. A lot of people believe that he did this to warn her to keep out of his business or he was going to injure him.
As the mother of a now 16-year-old.
Who I met backstage,
He did?
He's a great young man.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
You represent a lot.
Now, when it comes to Nicki Minaj, she could be a lot of things, but a liar isn't one of them. And it appears like people are now understanding that. Due of Wendy and Diddy's friendship, many were sure that Diddy was the only one guilty. But according to Nicki's new assertions, Jay-Z and Roc Nation also had a role in Wendy's difficulties, and they are now attempting to do the same thing to her. A few days ago, she got into it with Charlemagne over an interview he made with Gucci Mane and Keishia. In reaction to the interview, she accused Roc Nation of using Charlemagne to get Wendy into that guardianship. Charlemagne the Fraud is Jay-Z's friend and business associate, using iHeartRadio for these disgusting ploys against innocent families. He was around Wendy before her life went to bad. The buck ends here, baby. Bookmark this tweet. Tasha K also jumped into the discussion and offered us additional facts about what Nicki was talking about. Tasha claimed, Roc Nation has allegedly been plotting to get Nicki in a guardianship too, just like Wendy. But the only thing keeping them from being able to accomplish that is her husband, Kenneth Petty. Since she's married to Ken, even if they succeed in convincing physicians to diagnose her with mental health conditions she doesn't have, all her money would immediately go to Ken since he's her husband. And if you take a look at all the celebrities that were forced into a conservatorship, none of them were married. Britney wasn't married, and Wendy was divorced at the time Wells Fargo assigned her a guardian. If they had been married, it would have been more tougher for them to be placed under a guardianship.
This is not something that is like a conspiracy theory. This actually happens. But if they're able to separate Nicki and Kenny, that makes Nicki vulnerable because your husband is your power of attorney. Your husband is your signator on all of your accounts in the event anything goes wrong. Michael wasn't married. Britney Spears was married, but of course they control all of that. And so the mere fact that all these narratives are out about Kenny stealing this to buy chains and buy that, that's not what it is. It's like, they got doctors that are giving out these diagnoses saying that she's schizophrenic and bipolar and all of this stuff. And then Kenny's now here. She trusts Kenny. Of course, they've known each other since they were kids. Their families know each other. And so Kenny is just in the way. And so what do? You create narratives to try to separate, because if you separate, then you can divide and conquer. And so that's what it's about. She's going into her latter years and, there's a lot of money on the line and she's worth a lot, but Kenny is in the way. And so, look at what they're doing to Wendy Williams. Had Wendy would have still been with Kelvin, they wouldn't have been able to put her under a conservatorship because she has a husband. So, and like I said, there was only one that was accused of stealing. We're going to leave it at that. Okay?
Y'all are going to quit distorting my freaking words. Nicki Minaj ain't got no schizophrenia. They wanted to 5150 Kanye for being bipolar. It's a mental disease. Then turned around and attempted to confiscate his assets, simply because he was talking his ish. Meanwhile, Wendy Williams is sitting in a beautiful hospital room while her attorneys squander her money. Michael Jackson's gone, and Britney Spears had to depart the US to Mexico simply to feel free after years under that conservatorship. What part don't y'all understand? This is a systematic industry attack aimed to make her appear incapable of handling her own money. And let's be clear, Kenny, the spouse, is in the way. All this began when she posted about that blasted COVID vaccination. It's now being hypothesized that these instances of Wendy being misdiagnosed aren't a coincidence as the business wants us to think.
We have a history that supersedes music.
Allegedly a romantical thing. It's all right, I'll say alleged, but we know. Yeah, she hit it before Beyonce.
When Jada and them was in there doing basketball awards, you can't tell me Jada see a 14-year-old girl come in the studio and sit on R. Kelly's lap.
Wendy Williams has never been hesitant to say the silent, but this time, what she revealed could have shattered the last seal on a decades-old secret. Jay-Z, Foxy Brown, and a connection that didn't simply cross the boundaries of mentoring, it may have killed her career.
It's something that we kind of already thought about anyway, because, Foxy and Jay-Z work together.
And now, with a book on the way and old footage emerging, the industry's worst murmurs are finally turning into full-blown claims.
A lawsuit accuses him girl with Sean Diddy Combs at a house party more than 2 decades ago.
Why did Foxy disappear while she was on top of the world? Why is Jay-Z still ducking questions regarding the early days of her rise? And what does Diddy have to do with all of this? Because the farther you go into this narrative, the more it begins to appear like Wendy wasn't being sloppy this time. She was being honest. Before the controversy, before the industry politics, before the drama, there was simply a young girl from Brooklyn with a once-in-a-generation voice. Foxy Brown, born Inga DeCarlo Fung Marchand, comes from a particularly rich ancestry, Afro, Indo, and Chinese Trinidadian origins, all wrapped in one strong New York flow. Raised in Park Slope, she wasn't born into luxury, but skills she had in plenty. By the time she was 14, she was already garnering notice. Not in a casual, this kid has potential sense, but in a way that made mature businessmen pause and pay note. One night in 1994, Foxy's life changed. At a local talent event, she freestyled her way into hip-hop history. Sitting in the audience were producers Tone and Poke. Yep, the same masterminds behind LL Cool J's Mr. Smith record. They heard her, noticed her presence, and promptly flung her on a track. That music was the remix to I Shot Ya. When LL Cool J heard it, he believed it was a male rapper spewing fire. That's how raw her energy was. When he found out it was a teenage female, it was a rap. She was retained on the record. Foxy Brown was officially in. From then, it was like lightning in a bottle. In 1996, before she even turned 18, Foxy was featured on everything. Toni Braxton's You're Making Me High remix, Case's Touch Me, Tease Me, and most iconically Jay-Z's Ain't No Nina Moi. That last one is the key because that was the record that didn't just make them stars, it tied them together. That duo had chemistry, that flirty, cool kid on the block chemistry. But it wasn't simply music. Behind the scenes, rumors flew. Wendy Williams wasn't the first to say it, but she may have been the first to say it loud.
A romantical thing. It's all right, I'll say alleged, but we know. Yeah, she hit it before Beyonce.
People laughed, but it wasn't a joke to Foxy. Back then, she was a teenager, and Jay-Z was 27. It began with a poem, then came the chemistry. And for a few years, it appeared like Jay-Z and Foxy Brown were inseparable professionally, maybe even romantically. The hit albums, the appearances, the cosigns, they made each other seem unbeatable. Then, just like that, the mentoring stopped. The collabs halted. Jay-Z moved on, and Foxy began to vanish. At first, it seemed like standard business turmoil. Maybe creative issues, maybe her rivalry with Lil' Kim. But it wasn't the complete story, since this wasn't just about music. This was about control. Around 2003, Foxy began hinting at what truly transpired. In her diss hit Letter to the Firm, she snapped. She wasn't being subtle. She was revealing everything. And instead of fighting back, Jay-Z kept mute. He didn't answer in the booth. He didn't refute it. He merely stepped back. And that's when the blacklisting started. Suddenly, Foxy's initiatives began being shelved. Her album, Il Nana 2, The Fever, was canceled. Her label maneuvers became difficult. She began calling out bosses Liar Cohen, Diddy, and others, openly criticizing them for obstructing her career. But here's what nobody was saying out loud. Jay-Z wasn't defending her anymore. There were speculations that she had too much dirt on him, that she knew about the teenage allegations, the intimate life, the real Jay-Z beneath the business mogul mask. And for someone like Jay, who built an empire on quiet and image control, it was a problem, a large one. Industry sources claim he began working behind the scenes, pulling favors, making sure Foxy couldn't gain traction, reportedly paying her off, putting her into non-disclosure agreements, attempting to keep everything buried. Because if Foxy spoke, if she truly talked, it wouldn't only damage his name, it may relate him to others, to guys like Diddy. And that's when the stillness begins to make sense. Foxy didn't simply fall off, she was shut off, stopped, buried by the very guys who previously called her family. Now, if Foxy Brown were simply another musician with a grudge, the business would have gone on. But what makes her tale scary is that it doesn't end with Jay-Z. It brings in another titan. One who is presently seeing his empire burn in real time, Sean Diddy Combs. To understand why Foxy's silence meant so much, you have to look at the company she maintained. In the 90s and early 2000s, Foxy wasn't simply traveling in music circles. She was sitting next to the most prominent guys in the industry. Jay-Z was her collaborator. Diddy was her supporter. These weren't simply co-workers. These were gatekeepers, kings. And Foxy, she was the princess with the loaded memory. At the time, people didn't think too much of it. But today, in the context of what's happening to Diddy, the raids, the lawsuits, the charges, her comments strike differently. Because what Foxy knew about Jay-Z, there's a very high probability she knew about Diddy too. And here's when the two men's tales begin to blur. Foxy wasn't simply recognized for her songs. She was infamous for vanishing. One minute she was on top of the charts, the next she was gone. But when you look carefully, her disappearing act matches up precisely with the occasions she sought to speak up. There were whispers of a sex tape, one that supposedly involved Foxy, Jay-Z, and Jamie Foxx. There were rumors that Jay pushed her into signing many NDAs. But what got lost in the hoopla was the possibility that Diddy may have known about the recording, or maybe helped keep it out of the public spotlight. In this business, secrets are cash, and Foxy, she was carrying a fortune. But instead of cashing in, she disappeared. Not because she wanted to, but because the men she formerly trusted reportedly made sure she had no choice. And now, with Diddy under fire for everything from assault to trafficking to drug use to violence, it's difficult not to ask. Did Foxy know? March 25th, 2024 federal agents raid Diddy's residences in LA and Miami. They uncover guns, seize phones, and prove what the internet had previously thought, that Diddy's carefully manufactured image was masking behind something deeper. Several lawsuits follow, claims of abuse, grooming, NDAS, and hush money, the same patterns that Foxy alluded about in her past.